Welcome along to the penultimate episode of Matchbook's Champions League specials this season. Jonathan Wilson and Mark O'Hare are back on board. Bit of a later time this week, Tuesday recording with the bank holiday yesterday, giving the guys a bit of a break, but more time to prepare for this. And we'll get going. It's going to be an intriguing couple of games. We're going to start, first of all, on Wednesday night with Madrid against Man City. That is, of course, probably the more relevant fixture this week, as we kind of think that Liverpool are through. But let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Madrid at 3.35, Manchester City at 2.16, the draw available at 4.1. Madrid getting a quarter of goal starting the main Asian handicap line at 1.8. It's 4-5 in old money, and the total is 3, slightly shaded towards the over. There's no major surprise. That's 7 goals in Manchester last week. 2.75 was the goal line for that. Mark O'Hare, I think I missed the first leg preview. Daniel, our producer, was standing in, and he tried to make the case for Madrid with you guys. But I think with this Madrid team, it shouldn't work, but it does to a point. But this can only last for so long, right? We've been at this game long enough. The romantic in you sometimes wants to say, this is unbelievable, what's happening here and how they can compete. But City are probably the value in this one. We expect City to go through.
I do, yeah. I mean, it's knockout football, so I know it's over 2 legs, but clearly anything can happen. And clearly teams who probably don't deserve to go through can go through and can go all the way. So you can't rule them out. Of course you can't, particularly after what we've seen in the previous rounds. But I just think the first leg was just another example of Man City being the better team out of these two. They played each other a couple of years back, and City were much more dominant than the scoreline suggested. And I thought the same last week as well. I did call the first leg wrong. I thought it'd be a lot tighter, cagier, a bit more controlled, but clearly it wasn't. And fantastic match of football. But I still think City were by far and away the better team. To go 2-0 up early doors, then 3-1, they should really have wrapped the game up in the tie-up comfortably. They didn't. If you look at the expected goals figures as well as the eye test, it would show you that City were by far and away the better team. Real Madrid, if you exclude that penalty, their XG didn't even amount to 1. So yeah, I mean, they weren't the better team in the last couple of rounds. You know, PSG and Chelsea were arguably the strongest suit across 3/4 of those 2 ties, and they managed to find a way. And I think that's always the issue with Madrid, is can they continue to find a way? And I know Alaba is a major doubt. He might be missing, and I think that's a big blow for them in centre half, because I'm not sure Ancelotti completely trusts Nacho there. He's not been as good as he has been in previous campaigns. Casemiro, there's been talk that he might be moved back to centre half, which in itself leaves the midfield a bit weaker. But yeah, I expect Nacho will play centre back and Casemiro will slot back into midfield. So Madrid will be stronger in that sense, but Alaba's a big miss. The one worry I have for City is defensively, and you know, they lined up with Zinchenko and Stones at fullback, and then we had Fernandinho, which was really quite bizarre, playing fullback as well. But they got João Cancelo back, which is a massive bonus. Still don't have Kyle Walker's recovery pace, but just having Cancelo, an orthodox right back there, Zinchenko probably playing left back, just makes them a bit more sturdier. But I still think there's a fragility about them there, and there's still also a fragility about what they do in the final third. They might be able to create bundles of opportunities, but as we saw at one particular moment, Mahrez opting to shoot rather than pass to Foden when he could have put the game to bed and made it 3-0. You know, absolutely enraging Pep, and quite rightly so. So City still have the ability to shoot themselves in the foot, but I think the tie set up wonderfully. It's just how many times can Madrid continue to pull themselves off the canvas and drag themselves back into it? And clearly they have the ability in Benzema and Vinicius to get out the City team and really hurt them and be quite clinical. But ultimately, over 90 minutes, over 180 minutes, I think City are quite comfortably the stronger team. So it's not often we get to back Man City at odds against prices, regardless of the opposition. If you look at their sort of closing prices in all the bigger matches this season, this is one of the biggest. And I think if this match was 4-2, 3-1 coming into the second leg, I would not be interested. But the fact that there is only just 1 goal between them, away goals don't count. Suddenly, I think this match will play out in a different manner to how we saw the Atletico Madrid game. I think City will go for it this time. I think City will play their normal game, and I think Real Madrid at home chasing will obviously come out and play as well. So yeah, I'd expect a high-scoring game, and I think Man City can come out on top at the price.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, Mark, in terms of, you know, just that 1 goal, and obviously look, away goals don't count here. Anyway, Jonathan, look, you touched on the first leg. You were struggling to get on board this Real Madrid team. Mark touched on it there. Is that scoreline from the first leg pretty misleading to the casual viewer in the sense that, like, you do realize that there are a lot of people going to think there's a potential team of destiny about Real Madrid here after that result? They did just keep on finding a way. But in terms of, like, it's very similar to variance in betting. After a while, it runs out. Your luck runs out.
Well, you would think so, but I would have thought it should have run out before now. And I also sort of feel that, I mean, this season is a huge.
But the question is, Jonathan, do you want to die on this hill now? Because we're so far in saying this Real Madrid team won't progress any further.
Well, I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's true. Yeah. I didn't realize dying was part of the equation. I think Real Madrid have been like this for a decade. I mean, not to this extent, but that tendency's been there. That's when they won the 3 in a row. Yeah. I never quite fancied them then. I always felt they were that tie against Wolfsburg, when Wolfsburg totally bottled it and with the 2-goal lead. Yeah. And you sort of every time we kept playing Atletico, who you think of as being one of the mentally strongest teams in Europe, they always bottle it in the last minute against Real Madrid. And that is a quality. We shouldn't sort of, just because it doesn't fit into sort of neat statistical frameworks. That belief you can win any game. It is a great thing to have. It's one of the reasons why Real Madrid have been so successful in this competition, and it's one of the reasons why they were able to come back against PSG, why they were able to beat Chelsea, and when Chelsea got the tie, when Chelsea it seemed like they completed the comeback, Real Madrid Modric could still produce that brilliant pass to the outside of his right foot. When the vast majority of players and the vast majority of teams, you're desperately chasing the goal. You don't play some deft little flicky cross with the outside of your right foot. You just pop it in the box. But they have the self-belief to do that. So we shouldn't underestimate what an attribute that is. But what fascinates me as well is that City are the opposite of that. They dominate every game they play, and they don't win them all. And that slowly, we talked so many times about Pep and his overthinking. But the reason he overthinks is when he thinks a normal amount, they occasionally lose. And it particularly happens, obviously, against better opposition. And so that stage of the Champions League, Pep suffered so many of those defeats. 2010 against Inter, Barca with a better team and lost. His buying against Ancelotti's Real Madrid in 2014, it ends up being 5-0 over 2 legs, but certainly for the first sort of 2 hours of that tie, you'd probably say that the Bayern were better. Bayern against Atletico in 2016, they're clearly the better side and lose on away goals. Yeah. So that's why he's so paranoid about being counter-attacked, about balls played in behind them. And of course, the beauty of that is, one of the reasons why football is such a great sport, that how does City control games? They control games by playing high up the pitch and playing very compact, but that leaves space behind them. And that's the vulnerability that very good teams can exploit. So you can't counter that without affecting the thing that gives you the control. So there's that beautiful balance there, and getting that right is what will define whether City do go through or not. And Pep has a history of messing it up. And I think then that plays into a deeper psychological factor, which is, when Guardiola was growing up, when he was in the academy at Barcelona, when he was a ball boy, the first photograph we have of him on a football pitch, at the Camp Nou, is him as a ball boy after the 1986 semi-final, when Barca had lost 3-0 to Gothenburg in the first leg, beat them 3-0 at home, won on penalties, and he's 14 at the time. There's Pep celebrating on the pitch as a ball boy, and they're playing Stour in the final in Seville. So only 40 away fans going to travel. This team from Eastern Europe, team from Romania, nobody knows them, and they lose. And that cements, I think, in the minds of a lot of Barcelona fans, which Guardiola clearly was, and people involved with Barcelona at the time, that this wasn't their competition. This is the competition of Real Madrid. And of course, it's Real Madrid again. And then, 92, Guardiola plays in the team that finally breaks Barcelona's duck. But those neuroses are still there in the background. Yeah. Those failures, losing to Benfica in 1961, it all accretes in the history of the club and the history of people involved in the club. those doubts that this isn't quite for us. This competition, every time it has a chance to slap you in the face, it does. And that would be my worry here. I totally agree. City are the better team. They play the better football. It shouldn't work for Madrid, but equally it shouldn't not work for City. And again, it doesn't work for City. And I think that the City neurosis, the Pep neurosis, just sort of feed together. And that makes this is a game I think it's ripe for a Guardiola overthinking for a weird selection.
Yeah, I love the psychological aspect there. Heading back to 1986 for that one. You talked about Pep there and the potential for him to overthink it, right? We've discussed that ad nauseum in the past. But of Ancelotti, it's been well publicized in the last couple of days. He's won, the top 5 leagues in Europe. He's the only manager to won a league in each. But the guy, for me, still isn't discussed in terms of the pantheon of the great managers, the Klopps, the Guardiolas, those types. Like, he's 3 Champions League titles, and I think people are remembering the last couple of year or two with Everton. This guy, if he wins this Champions League with Real Madrid, Jonathan, this has probably got to be one of his greatest accomplishments. Because even if you look back, that AC Milan team that he had, a few years back, it's a good few years back, with Shevchenko up front and these kind of guys, that was a great team. This Real Madrid team isn't a great team.
No, it's not. And one of the reasons they've won La Liga this year is because they don't really have any opposition.
Yeah.
This has been a much, much weaker than normal Barcelona. Atletico may be sort of feeling the effects of having won it last year. And in Spain, there just is nobody else. So I think, that's one of the reasons. If you'd gone back to the 70s or the 80s and said there will be a manager wins a league in all 5 major European leagues, wins a league title in all 5 major leagues, you'd say, well, he's clearly an extraordinary genius. And you have to give Ancelotti credit for what he has achieved. But at the same time, he's been on this lovely little carousel of going around the best teams, which gives you a great chance. He hasn't. It'd be absurd to say this. You can't judge him on this, but he hasn't taken over Nottingham Forest and made them league champions. And he's very, very good at dealing with the egos of big players. I think even with you've seen him handle some very, very difficult players very, very well. He's very good at managing up. So he seems to be able to get on with Berlusconi and Perez and whoever the board is. He's very good at dealing with them. But I think it's very hard to. I think the reason he doesn't get celebrated in the way that a Klopp or a Guardiola does is it's very hard to know what Ancelotti football is. There's no team he's taken over and transformed it into his own image, and so it does just sort of feel like he's his teams are not some expression of his personality, but. To win those 3 Champions Leagues, to win those league titles in the 5 different countries, he's clearly brilliant at that sort of diplomatic side of management.
Yeah.
And the way he does all, the contrast on the touchlines last week of him sitting back when his team's apparently getting a pummeling, and Guardiola's sort of hyperactivity. And you do wonder whether, particularly the way he reacted to that, the Mahrez shot when he could have squared it for Foden, that Mark referred to earlier, did that sort of convey an anxiety to a team that was otherwise dominant? And then, the sort of related to that, the season when he got sacked at Bayern was going pretty badly wrong, and there was a sense he wasn't intense enough and they weren't training hard enough. And you also have to remember, he's one of only 2 managers in the last 10 years not to win the league at PSG. And that, again, suggests that lack of intensity, which again, it's this balance of football. His lack of intensity is one of the reasons why people get on with him. It also means he can't perhaps drive through a project and drive through some sort of radical overhaul of a team's style.
Yeah, it's interesting what you mentioned there about the diplomacy. I know we've gone down a slight bit of a rabbit hole on this one, but I think when he took over from Fatih Terim, the Turkish manager at AC Milan, apparently he went boozing and eating dinner with Galliani, who would have been Berlusconi's number 2. So that tells a lot about the guy in that sense, that he'll go drinking with Galliani in Milan. And what else would you do? Mark, very quickly, just to wrap up. So it's City here, nothing 2.16. You wouldn't even be tempted on the minus a quarter of a goal handicap, 1.86. So happy enough straight up.
Happy enough straight up. If anything, I'd be looking for a bigger price and chucking in both teams to score, which is obviously, where is it? I just had it there a second ago. But Man City to win and over 2.5 goals is 2.88, which is appealing enough. Man City and both teams to score is 3.55. That's what I'd be looking for if I was looking for an alternative.
All right, good stuff. So we're going to die in this hill. Well, I'm going to die in this hill anyways. I'm back in City again this week. All right. Villarreal against Liverpool. Jonathan, I'll start with you for this one, but let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. 4.9 you can back Villarreal. It's actually a very slight drift on Liverpool up to 1.76 this morning. The draw available 4.2. The main handicap line plus 3/4 of a goal at 1.98. Villarreal, you can back there 2 3/4 is the total and slightly shaded towards the over. Jonathan, I won't name check the person, but somebody in TalkSport got very upset about Villarreal the first leg. You can kind of see it, I can kind of not see it, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, what else are you going to do? But what way do you see them kind of approaching this one? Because if they have similar tactics here, it's a complete waste of time on tonight, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they meant to play quite as defensively as that. And, we've seen Villarreal. Well, maybe that particular one, I hadn't seen Villarreal, but Villarreal in the previous 2 rounds, they defend deep, but they're also very dangerous and very aggressive on the break. And I think it's testament to how good Liverpool are at pressing, and also probably the absence of Moreno in that game that they weren't able to pose any kind of threat. And that, of course, is a massive problem, because even if that threat only sort of occurs in the form of potential, if you're slightly worried that, right, we can't let Moreno or Danjuma get a run at us, so then you leave 3 or 4 players back, and there's that slight element of doubt, and you don't commit to the press in quite such a forceful way. But it was pretty obvious after about half an hour of that game that Villarreal just couldn't get out. They couldn't do anything. I saw a really interesting analysis pointing out that it was when Liverpool stopped committing fouls was when they really took control of that game, that they realised Villarreal just didn't have a quality on the ball. You didn't have to be aggressive. Just wait, and they would give you the ball back. And of course, this is the 7th best team in La Liga. They're not, for them to have got to this stage is an incredible thing. And it's sort of one of the, I seem to be talking a lot about football's internal paradoxes and checks and balances, but it is one of the things when you have shocks in competitions. Part of you's like, oh, this is brilliant. This is a shock. I didn't see that coming. But the danger is you have too many shocks. You get to the last stages and there's no good teams left and the football's terrible, which is what happened, the 2002 World Cup, where there seems to be shocks pretty much every game the first week or two of that tournament. And you end up with, Turkey and the US, Senegal getting to the quarterfinals and not really having the quality to look like potential winners. So you can't blame Villarreal for not being as good as Liverpool. Of course they're not as good as Liverpool. Their budget's tiny. Everything tells you they're not as good as Liverpool and can't conceivably be. It's a miracle they've got this far.
Yeah.
But this tie is it's slightly hard to judge, because I think had Liverpool got 1 more goal, you'd have said 100% they're going through. But there is just a tiny fraction of a doubt. But they can't mess about with this, because Emery is still a smart coach and this is still a dangerous team, albeit possibly without Danjuma. Moreno looks like he will be back, but Danjuma, I think, is a pretty major doubt.
He's a big loss. He's a big loss there if he doesn't go on out. I think Moreno should be back. That's what Unai Emery is saying in the last couple of days. Anyway, Mark, in terms of this one, I think a lot of people look at Villarreal's record at El Madrigal, none of this Ceramica business for me, but they're unbeaten in 12. Mark, they haven't lost to Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus. But let's call it what it is. This Liverpool team is a different beast, even to those 4 sides as well.
Yeah, I was fascinated to hear Jonathan's views on this, because obviously after hearing the criticism that Villarreal got last week, I just thought, well, what do you want this team to do? Everton had, I wouldn't say given Liverpool a real good game, but Everton has a bit of joy in the derby just days earlier, lining up in a very similar fashion. They obviously showed a few more fleeting moments in the final third than Villarreal managed, but we touched on it there. You're playing arguably the best team in the world, and you're not even in the top 4 in your own country. So I thought Villarreal would have been foolish to kind of release the shackles and go for it at Anfield. So Emery was pretty despondent post-match. He kind of, surprisingly to me, admitted that maybe he did get the game plan wrong, but I didn't think the game plan was wrong. I thought they very much had Liverpool at arm's length and weren't sort of conceding high quality opportunities until the first goal went in, and it was a bit of a fluke, really. So, but I guess when you are playing a team as relentless as Liverpool, with a squad so stacked with 5 subs able to come on and change the game, you've got to be so good. You've got to be perfect for 90 minutes to ride that out, and it's very, very difficult. But yeah, I was kind of this is very difficult to different to what we saw against Juventus and Bayern Munich, because the way in which the legs were, Villarreal were playing at home in those first two legs and had a second leg, something to kind of play for. Whereas here they're chasing at home. It's very different, and I find it very difficult to see them battling their way back into this match. I know Moreno being back, he trained on Monday. That's a big plus. As we say, Danjuma didn't train on Monday, so it looks like he might be missing. I do think you need that pace. Obviously, Moreno will give them a bit more of an outlet, but even still, just playing through that press and then even just to try and beat the offside trap is very, very difficult. Liverpool defensively, it's one of their parts of the game which doesn't get mentioned quite enough. They've kept more clean sheets than anyone else in the Premier League this season. And you see them, they're just, Fabinho last week was just charging around, putting out fires everywhere, really. And when you've got Fabinho doing that and then Thiago working his magic as well alongside him, such a beautiful combination. It's very, very difficult to see them doing anything. Personally, I think they'd be foolish to kind of go for it from the first whistle. I think as soon as you open yourself up, you give Liverpool that extra time and space, the opportunity. But in terms of a bet here, I just thought, well, Liverpool have got that 2-goal lead. We've seen in the last couple of rounds now against Benfica and Inter Milan, when they've cut a first leg lead, they're not that bothered about kind of extending it. They kind of just see the game out, preserve as much as they possibly can, continue this rest and rotation, which isn't massive rotation, but it's just enough really to keep everyone fit and firing and fresh. And they're just too good, really. But I don't really want to back a team at 176 to win a match they don't need to win. They're playing Spurs on Saturday, which you could arguably say is the priority now because this match should be done. If there was an opportunity to back second half goals, that's possibly where I'd look, because I think at some point Villarreal will need to loosen up and be a bit more adventurous. But I don't think it will be from the first whistle. So, yeah, I thought maybe under 3 goals. I'd be surprised if there's 4 or more. But clearly, if Liverpool score early, this tie's dead, and that's always the issue, I think, when coming at this match from a kind of punting perspective. Do I really want to get involved in that when the game could be dead after half an hour? So in the end, I've just left it. But if you guys got a better way in, then I'm more than happy to hear it.
Yeah, Jonathan, I can't get Mark there with a bit, but I think you're happy enough with Liverpool 1.76. And again, look, Mark touched a good point there. The 5 subs is big, and obviously Klopp was able to rest a few guys as well against Newcastle, which could be key here.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's complained at the time, so it's actually worked out quite nicely for him to go, Wednesday, Saturday with a slightly easier game than next week, Tuesday. So I think he will rest some players, but probably not that many. I mean, it was an extraordinary thing. You sort of the depth this Liverpool squad. I was up at St James's on Saturday, and saw Minamino warming up, and I don't remember his name on the team sheet. Looked at the team sheet, sure, it never wasn't there. He just gone along to warm up with them, and and you sort of think, God, Minamino can't even get in the what was it, 20 these days? Like that's ludicrous.
That says a lot. Yeah.
And actually, I look back at the team that played against Villarreal in the semi-final of the Europa League in 2016, in the Klopp's first season. And this is a slightly false statistic because Joe Gomez, Jordan Henderson, and one other, Origi, were all out from that game. But there's only two survivors from that game who were available in this game, which is Milner, and Firmino, who is injured, but is conceivably available. And so I think to transform a squad in 6 years like that is, I don't what net cost of was something like 230 million. It's remarkable what Liverpool and Klopp have done. They spent about 400 million quid less than City net in that time. So look, I don't think this will be high scoring. So Liverpool to win. Whether you extend it to Liverpool to win in under 4.5 goals, which is 2.17, I think that's an option. But I fundamentally just think Liverpool are not merely better, but they're significantly better than Villarreal in the way they're maybe not significantly better than Inter or Benfica. Yeah. I just don't see how Villarreal can really hurt them.
Just out of interest, Jonathan, if you were Unai Emery, how do you beat this Liverpool team? Because I mean, he said himself in the press conference to try and beat Liverpool on a good day is hard enough, but when you've got a 2-goal deficit to kind of overhaul as well, it's how?
Well, I think you've got to. You almost don't try, do you? You think let's keep it 0-0 after an hour, and then we got a half-hour game, and I mean, I think what they need to do. I mean, this is obvious, but they need Danjuma fit, and they need him getting in behind Alexander-Arnold, and pretty much I'd almost sort of. I know Moreno normally plays centrally, but he has played slightly to the right. You almost station them on the wings, and so as soon as you get the ball, just bomb it down the channels, and try and get one more breaking from midfield, and otherwise keep it very tight with those two banks of four. But there's no way they can dominate possession. There's no way they can even have over 40% possession, I'd suggest, unless Liverpool are sort of almost literally giving it to them. So yeah, it's 2-0 is any team can score 2 goals in any game, but it feels as close to being as done as a 2-0 first leg can do, I think.
Yeah, I got that sense as well. 1.76 you can back Liverpool. We'll get to the best bet double in a second. That's going to be enhanced on site. And also, speaking of that on site podcast special, if you want to back that Liverpool quadruple, that's still very much in play, of course. 10.0. That's pretty much industry best price at matchbook.com. Obviously, we're kind of reliant on a City slip up there to probably get that one up potentially. But a lot of football to be played. If you haven't got a Matchbook account and you're watching us today and you're listening, you're thinking these are terrific prices. They generally are. You go to the odds checker grid most weeks, most days, and you'll see the Matchbook is invariably best price on football. You can use the sign-up offer or bonus code INSIGHTS30. That's a £30 welcome offer. Money back as cash if your first bet loses up to £30. The all important thing there, Insights 30, and full terms and conditions can be found at insights.matchbook.com. Best bet double, guys. We won't really go back into it there. I'm kind of just taking it for you here. Man City and Liverpool both to win at 3.75. That's 11-4 in old money there, and that's available under podcast specials. All right, so an all-English final in Paris on the 28th of May. That's simple. That's how it goes, yeah, but we're going that way with it. There may be a couple of twists and turns in Madrid, especially on Wednesday. My thanks to Jonathan. My thanks to Mark. Gentlemen, pleasure as ever. We'll be back the week of the final to preview that game. Should be going. But the best of luck this week with your bets. Enjoy the football, and we'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.